For all the real men out there, it's time to take a hard look at ourselves. As much as we hate to admit it, we all have weaknesses that we need to take control of. Some of us may resist because we don't want to make changes, but deep down we know that if we want to live our best life, then conquering our weaknesses is a must. In this video, we'll be discussing some of the most common weaknesses that men must learn to control. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Weakness. Number 1. Getting addicted. When it comes to weaknesses and things men must learn to control, addiction can be a significant issue for some. Two of the most common addictions for men are adult movies and alcohol. These addictions can be significantly damaging, not only because of their effects on physical and mental health, but also because they can cause social issues such as strained relationships with friends, family, and partners. Adult movies can lead to an increased desensitization to real-life interactions with women, an increase in intimacy issues with partners, depression, or anxiety. It is important for men to recognize when they are developing this kind of addiction so that steps can be taken to control it before it becomes a problem. Taking charge of one's life is the only way to ensure long-term success in conquering these addictions and regaining control over one's life. By the way, if you are struggling with adult movie addiction and you need help getting rid of it so you can finally take control of your life, then check out the link in the description. We have a guide that will help you along the way. Weakness number 2. Focusing too much on women. Another one of the biggest weaknesses men increasingly face is focusing too much on women. It's true that cultivating relationships and exploring intimate connections with a partner can be incredible for one's emotional growth. But for those with an unhealthy amount of focus on their romantic pursuits, these relationships can quickly become exhausting and unfulfilling. A man who spends most of his life trying to gain the favor or attention of women will likely find himself in a cycle of unending dissatisfaction. No matter how many women he attracts, his heart may not feel satiated. In order to prevent this state from persisting indefinitely, it is essential for any man to understand that self-improvement must come from within before any meaningful bond with another person can be successfully established. To combat this weakness, it pays to become more aware of one's own habits and tendencies related to how they perceive and interact with members of the opposite gender. For some men, this might mean taking breaks in between romances in order to better reflect on what went right or wrong throughout the course of previous relationships. For other men, it may require supplementing social activities with activities like meditation or mindfulness that provide an opportunity to take stock emotionally throughout dating experiences. Overall, when aiming for healthy relationships, romantic or platonic, men must practice discernment when it comes to how much they allow themselves to be consumed by thoughts related to these connections, while also connecting deeply enough with themselves so as not to become fixated on others' approval before authentically loving themselves first. When done correctly, this understanding can drastically improve a man's quality of life, both inside and outside his romantic relationships alike. Weakness number 3. Getting into debt. Debt can control and negatively impact a man's life if he does not actively work towards controlling it. From student loans to credit cards, getting into debt can be a slippery slope. In the US, men have higher average debt levels than women, take on larger mortgages, and own more expensive items on credit. In order to take control of your money and prevent yourself from getting into debt, it is essential for a man to develop good financial habits such as budgeting, saving, and tracking spending. Without a well-thought-out budget that includes payment plans for debts, it is easy to fall behind or make poor decisions with money that lead to additional debt. Weakness number 4. Excessive use of social media. Social media can be especially dangerous for men who have yet to learn the importance of self-control and the value of personal boundaries. These digital platforms can be detrimental to men if used in excess, as it releases a surge of dopamine that can become almost addictive and lead to further distraction from more constructive pursuits. Social media can also present a false sense of reality, feeling compelled to monitor other people's lives through elevated highlight reels that portray only the best parts of a person's life instead of focusing on developing one's own. One way to personally protect oneself from social media is to limit the amount of time spent scrolling through feeds, keeping specific check-ins at specific times during the day, such as once in the morning pre-breakfast and once in the evening, instead of crossing over into mindless scrolling throughout all hours. Foster meaningful connections with people versus counting friends who are considered followers online. Tracking others online rarely leads to any objectives beyond keeping up with an illusionary goal or far-fetched, often superficial standards set by popular socialites or celebrities. For men willing to go further in managing their relationship with social networks, deleting certain individuals or apps entirely are sound solutions, unless you need it for business functions such as creating a startup page for professional purposes or connecting with colleagues. Filters or personal protective settings should also be frequently updated if remaining active for safety precautions against cyberbullying. The ultimate mindset should remain: now what does this resource do for me, rather than mindlessly flipping through feeds for hours at a time. Weakness number 5. Procrastinating. Procrastinating is one of the common weaknesses amongst men. It is a behavior pattern where individuals put off tasks or decisions, often to the point of causing greater problems within themselves and their lives. By not facing up to difficult tasks or decisions until the last possible moment, procrastinators suffer greatly from stress, poor self-esteem, missed opportunities, and even guilt. It is normal for everyone to feel procrastination once in a while. However, it can be important for men to learn how to control procrastinating and maintain behaviors which are more productive and beneficial in nature. Here are some strategies which can help procrastinators overcome this tendency. First, come up with a plan. Break the task down into steps that need to be taken so that they seem less overwhelming. Second, get organized. Create a manageable timeline where each step can fit into the overall schedule of your day, week, or month. Further organize by tracking all time wasted in non-productive activities that could have been used instead of completing the task at hand. Thirdly, reward yourself. This can help maintain motivation and provide an extra incentive for completing tasks on time. It also serves as a reminder of all of the positive effects that arise from being productive, rather than succumbing to procrastinating tendencies. Fourthly, if feeling overwhelmed about the amount of work needed for completion, take breaks in between periods of intense focus so that you stay productive, both mentally and physically throughout your day. This helps ensure that when dealing with our inevitable weaknesses like procrastination, there will still be progress towards accomplishing our goals, even if it isn't immediate perfection. Finally, keep your eye on success. Reframe how you see yourself during moments of doubt or overwhelm as actively working towards an end goal, which is ultimately beneficial, rather than simply wasting time by succumbing to feelings of low motivation and productivity due to momentary failures caused by procrastination tendencies. But the deepest weakness we see in men today is their addiction to adult movies. And that is because it's so hard to control your urges. That's why we released a video that's going to help you control them. So click on the video that's showing on the left if you want to learn how to control your urges, or click on the video on the right that YouTube thinks you might enjoy.